Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's one, we're going to be going over the 5 submachine guns that you should be farming for right now in preparation for Witch Queen. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in case you were unaware or haven't had the chance to read the most recent TWAB, basically Bungie has already released all of next season's champion mods that we'll be needing and the archetypes that come along with them. So basically that gives the player base a head start to go out there and farm their favorite weapons that they can bring into the next season to help deal with champions effectively, because in case you don't know, champions are pretty much in all of the endgame content and you are going to need to run these certain archetypes of weapons to have a smooth and effective experience, especially at the beginning of a season when we are going to be extremely low light and master difficulty content is going to be quite challenging again. So my first recommendation of choice is going to be the friction fire in the kinetic slot. This is a precision frame 600 RPM submachine gun, and I believe this is going to be our first best option here. It can roll with Killing Wind, Subsistence, and Threat Detector in the first perk column, as well as Vorpal Weapon and Rampage in the second column. You can get this SMG by just simply configuring your Cryptolith Flare in your inventory by running those missions on the Dreaming City or the Tangled Shore, which take absolutely no time and hardly any resources to get in order to be able to actually do. Overall, it has 56 range, 43 stability, and 52 aim assist, which means it's going to feel nice on keyboard and mouse as well as controller. I personally play on both and it feels just fine on both of them. It's a 600 RPM, which means it's not going to stun overload champions as effectively as the 750 would, but you are going to benefit from that extra range, and it has a nice perk pool to choose from, and it's a very easy weapon to get, which means I think it's a very good first option in the kinetic slot. Next up is going to be the extraordinary rendition, which is also in the kinetic slot. This is an aggressive frame, which means it's high damage, high recoil, and it's a 750 RPM. I chose this as the second kinetic option because it can also roll some really nice perks. In the first perk column, it can have Subsistence, Overflow, Surplus, and Outlaw. And in the second perk column, it can roll with Rampage, Frenzy, and One for All, which are some really nice perk combinations and can be very effective in endgame content. Overall, I wanted to choose this because it's also very easy to get, and mainly because it's a 750 RPM and means it's going to be a very good option for stunning overloads, because the higher the RPM, the more effective it is at doing that. Like I just said, this is one of the season of the chosen weapons, which means you can farm battlegrounds and hope to get lucky, or you can take your umbrals to the recaster in the helm and focus certain engrams in order to get one of these weapons. This is probably going to be the easiest one to obtain because you can just focus your umbrals, which seem to still drop like crazy in the current meta. Overall, it has 48 range, only 17 stability, and 34 aim assist, which means it's going to be a lot less friendly to you controller players than the friction fire would be. But on the other hand, it's also going to be more effective at dealing with those overload champions because of the higher RPM on it. And also it's going to be much easier to get, like I said, because most people have a lot of umbral engrams that they have on hand that they can go decode at the recaster to try to get their hands on one of these. So overall, that's going to be the price you pay. It's going to be easier to get but harder to control. So now we're going to be moving into the energy weapons, and first up we have the Borrowed Time here. So the reason I chose this weapon is because it's a solar affinity, and I don't see a lot of solar affinity subs being used, and that could come in quite handy when you're fighting a combatant with solar shields. And also it has an enormous perk pool to choose from here. So in the first perk column we can have Heating Up, Tunnel Vision, Rangefinder, Fourth Time's a Charm, Killing Wind, Overflow, Surplus, Threat Detector, Feeding Frenzy, and Dynamic Sway Reduction. And then in the second perk column we can have Dragonfly, Thresh, Snapshot Sights, Demolitionist, Swashbuckler, One for All, Rampage, and Surrounded. So this thing has a ton of different perk combinations you can choose from. There's so many different god rolls you can get out of this thing. And overall, it's really nice. It's a 750 RPM because it is that aggressive frame. So it's going to be quite nice to deal with those overload champions next season. Overall, it has 43 range, 26 stability, and 38 aim assist, so it's not going to feel too bad on controller. It's not going to feel the greatest, but it's not going to be too bad, especially for an aggressive frame. Overall, you could put whatever mod you want on it, and it will feel pretty good no matter what you're playing on it with. It has so many different perk combinations that if you need help getting some extra stability or handling, there's so many different options you can choose from here to help bump those stats up. Overall, I would definitely recommend this. It's a very solid aggressive frame solar affinity submachine gun that you can be taking into the Witch Queen next season. So next up for the arc affinity, we have the Ikelos SMG, and this is the absolute go weapon. I love this thing and I've been using it forever, and I highly recommend you grab one of these for Witch Queen. Warmind cell builds have gotten nerfed in the past, but they're still very strong. Definitely don't sleep on them. The big reasons I chose it is because it's arc affinity and it's also a 750 RPM aggressive frame, so it's going to be nice to deal with those overload champions next season. It also has some nice perks to choose from here. In the first column we can get Threat Detector, Subsistence, Grave Robber, and Dynamic Sway Reduction. And then in the second column we can get Disruption Break, Surrounded, Vorpal Weapon, and Demolitionist. So those are the two big points right there. It's an arc, it's a 750 RPM aggressive frame, and it has some nice perks to choose from. So overall it has 54 range, 39 stability, and 42 aim assist, so it's going to feel really nice on keyboard and mouse as you would expect, and it's also going to feel pretty damn good on controller. So overall this weapon has really solid perks, its stats feel really good, especially considering it's an aggressive frame, so it's going to be nice at dealing with those overload champions next season. And it's also an Ikellos weapon, so you can create those Warmind cells and then benefit from all your Warmind cell mods on your armor, which are still very strong. A lot of people think that those builds are no longer any good because Bungie nerfed them back in the day, but that is actually false. Warmind cell builds are still very strong, and I would definitely recommend bringing this weapon in to use those builds with in the Witch Queen. So lastly, for the Void Affinity, we have the SHAYURA'S Wrath here, and I decided it was important to put in a weapon that has an adept version. So it is a 600 RPM precision frame SMG, so it's going to be friendly to controller players. It has some decent perk combinations, and overall it's going to be pretty solid at dealing with those overload champions. But if you manage to get the adept version, you can also put your adept mods on it, and that's why I included it. If you want to go the extra mile, you can go ahead and put your hard-earned mods on there. Overall it's void, so it covers that last affinity we need. It's a 600 RPM precision frame. It's going to feel good no matter what you're using, and also it has an adept version for those adept mods, and those are the big reasons why I decided to include it in this list. So now moving into the perks, in the first column it can roll with Killing Wind, Tunnel Vision, Dynamic Sway Reduction, Heating Up, Quick Draw, and Hipfire Grip. And then in the second column it can roll with Adrenaline Junkie, Kill Clip, Snapshot Sights, and Harmony. Those are really the only beneficial perks there I see on this weapon. So overall it can't have the greatest perks, but again it has an adept version, and I think that's the main reason why it should be included in this list. So anyways, that does it. That's all 5 submachine guns I recommend that you go out there and farm for the Witch Queen, and that is going to be a wrap on this video. If you found it informational or helpful or just entertaining in general, be sure to give it a thumbs up and drop a comment below letting me know what you think. And also consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. I'll probably be making more videos going over all of next season's champions archetypes in future videos here. And that is going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next one, and until then, peace out. Have a good one.